Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Guitar Underground. I'm your host, Neil Santos, also the creator of Pentatonic Way, and I am happy to be joining you this morning. It's bright and early on a New England morning. I dropped my son off for school. The rest of the family's still sleeping, and I thought this might be a cool time for you and I to hang out. Just getting over a cold. Might have been COVID, I don't know. But yeah, I'm on the tail end of it, but I just want to mention that to apologize in advance for any weird voice things going on. But you know what they say, as musicians and artists who perform, the show must go on, right? So we can still hang out and talk. Hopefully my mind keeps up with my mouth and I say things that are helpful to you. Speaking of which, today in this episode, we're going to talk about how you can start playing what you hear in your head, right? Stop guessing and hear what you play in advance. I hear it from a lot of students all my life saying, I just want to play what I hear in my head. You know, that's a goal for many students, and that's the ultimate freedom on the guitar, when you can imagine it and just put it on the neck in the moment and not have to think about it. So we're going to work on that today. We're going to talk about that. The good news is it's not about learning more theory. It's about understanding why you feel like you're guessing, right? Even after years of playing, you're still guessing where you're going. So if you feel like you know scales, but your solos still feel random, then this episode's for you. We're going to talk about 5 reasons you're still guessing when you improvise, and then we're going to look at 5 simple ways to start hearing what you play, or playing what you hear. Let's get into it. Here are 5 reasons you're still guessing when you improvise, okay? Number 1, you're playing shapes instead of sounds. Or maybe even licks instead of what you imagine in your head. You're not hearing phrases before you play them, and you just kind of are noodling around in the shape. And I have been guilty of this, and I would say that some of this is actually healthy. You know, like if you're just playing through shapes, I like the pentatonic shapes. But I find that, in different contexts, that shape sounds different than it does normally, right? So that matters when you're playing shapes. Like when I teach courses on the Pentatonics, a lot of people, they understand the minor pentatonic. And all of their licks are built around that, and they don't even know it, I guess, going in, that they're just playing the same licks to that shape, right? Like, and then we get into some lessons on the major pentatonics, which is the same shape, just kind of applied differently, re-aimed, right, if you will, at the chord in a different way, and they're trying to play those same shapes that they were playing over the minor. And it's not gonna sound the same. Like they go, whoa, and they struggle very, very much. They struggle very much so with that. And I think that's the reason, is because they're just playing the same shapes they have, and they probably have the most like shapes and licks in that first position, right? That's gonna sound different over D major, than it will on over a B minor. Fifth, if you play that lick, then when you think you're landing on the root, now you're landing on the 9th. your phrase. So it's not going to feel like you finished, and you're going to feel like I got to keep moving, So then that throws you into guessing mode, and you're going, I thought I was going to stick that landing, but here I go. I have to keep playing. So what do I play next? And then you're on the run, So that's one thing. Playing shapes or these, licks, without any thought really, and just kind of just going for it, not being intentional, right? And it's not going to sound the way you think it does in your head if it's over the wrong chord. So, part two, second reason maybe you're guessing, is you think that more theory will fix your problem, right? I have been guilty of this for sure. For a long time, I would just collect scales, right, in my head, write them down. Flip through the guitar grimoire, right? You guys ever hear that? Where it's just like this tome of odd scales that you would never ever use. But for me, I was like, well, I need to know this, and the more I know, like I'm not hearing what I want to. I'm not hearing on the fretboard what I have in my head and all this. And I thought, just let's get more scales. More scales is the answer. More theory. Come to find that if I simplified it, that made all the difference. And I can talk more about that in the 5 tips. But yeah, more theory is not going to do it. It doesn't create clarity. Familiarity does. So really focusing and diving deep on one thing, one type of scale, one approach to soloing is going to give you more clarity than just a bunch of different things. Like, just grab this scale and that scale and this scale and all the modes of the scale. And I have to understand the 7 modes of the harmonic minor and 7 modes of the melodic minor. I have to understand whole tone scales, and I have to understand diminished, and all that stuff is great. I'm not saying don't learn that stuff, but that might just muddy the waters when it comes time to solo and you're going, I don't know which one to do. I don't know any of them very well, right? I mean, there's only so much time in the day to become familiar with the scale and really internalize it and build your style around it. So I would suggest bringing it back, bringing it back to the basics. All right. You're running notes instead of targeting notes. Instead of aiming for strong notes, which would be notes from the chords, as they go, you're just playing patterns, right? I used to do this in high school too. Just so you know, you're not alone. I'm guilty of all of these at one point or another, but I was always pretty good at taking, I learned the church modes, the 3-note per string start. And I was pretty good at just legato. I had to warm up today, but what I would do is just do that over everything. All right, Neil, time to solo. All right. All right, back to the song. I would just do that because then I would never have to land on anything and have it sound off. I'm just going so fast, right? So that's not really what you want to do, right? You want to be able to target the notes from the chord and make it sound like, you're part of the same song as everybody else. If a bass player was doing that, just shredding all over the place, the song would fall apart because they're not targeting the chord notes, they're not targeting the arpeggios and whatever. I mean, you can play outside the arpeggios, but as long as on those strong beats, you're reinforcing, boom, here's a chord tone, boom, here's a chord tone. And you can't do that if you just flying around running notes. So we'll talk about a good tip to solve that problem in the next half. Cool. Number 4. you avoid repetition. So you play an idea once and abandon it, right? But repetition is how your ear builds connections to the fretboard, and also how the audience builds connections with what you're doing and starts to invest in it in a way, which is good. But yeah, I am guilty of this, as obviously, but recently even, like, this is something I always want to work on. I'm always recording myself jamming, and like in the moment I'm just going, I'm playing, everything seems fine. I watch back and I'm like, oh, that was a cool lick. I should have repeated that. You know what I mean? Like, I am always looking for the next thing. And sometimes I do it in the moment. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let's double down on this, right? Let's triple down on this. Let's keep going, create something out of it rather than just blah, just what's next? What's next? Where does this lead me? Where does this go? So that's something you can mess around with, is repetition. You're always abandoning ideas. And yeah, sometimes you don't have to, but that's hard to do in the moment when you're under pressure and you want to just keep going. So we'll look at that in the second half. You practice with too many options, right? We talked a little bit about this, but unlimited notes feel freeing, but they actually create hesitation, right? Simplicity sharpens awareness, and fewer notes build stronger hearing. So it kind of leads to, all right, so if you play fewer notes and you have fewer options, you're going to be able to react quicker, right? Like, if you had to, I don't know, I'm thinking a karate guy for some reason for this analogy, but say you're in a karate fight, and there's a guy in front of you, you know, you can throw all your punches there, right? And attacks there and guard there. But if there's a bunch of people around you, now you have to react to all those people. And that's similar with notes. Like, if you can just say, I'm just going to play the chord tones, focus here, then you can really focus your energy and your output in that direction. I'm not sure if that analogy works, but the idea is that, say if you're in an emergency situation, which I think that improvising in a way does mimic, because it's like you have to make decisions in the moment fast. Like, the song doesn't stop for you. You got to keep going. So having less options actually helps, right? Because you don't have to worry about, oh, should I play this scale there, that scale, or this note with that note, or try to filter through a scale with 12 notes, or chromatic scale, or 7 notes, like a typical scale, and say, all right, which ones work with this chord right now? And then oh, now the chord changed. Which ones work with this chord right now, or that chord? You know what I mean? So if you just do arpeggios for each of the chords, then you're nailing the chord tones. Or if you do pentatonics, you're nailing the chord tones, but you also have these couple added color notes, which is what I like about them. But yeah, just limit your options, and that's going to help you choose what to do next. Also, by limiting your options, as you practice that way, you start to train your brain. And this was the real mind bender for me when I started doing this. Now you're training your brain to hear what's next, what the next option should be. So in a way, when you're saying, oh, I want to play what's in my head, you might be writing stuff in your head that's not really correct for what you should, for what the chord progression is or whatever. So by practicing with limited collection of notes for each chord, you're building the opposite. You're going the other way, and you're training your brain to know what's possible with the notes that you're playing. So your brain will create these phrases and cool licks that are possible with what you're using. and then it goes back to your hand, and your hand kind of goes, oh, I know what that is, and plays it. You know what I mean? It's like a reverse thing, reverse loop. First, you think it's like, oh, I'm going to teach my hand what to play, but first you have to teach your brain what's possible, and then your hand will play it. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't know. It does to me, and hopefully it will to you when we look at the next part. But now it's time for the low pressure commercial read. So this episode's brought to you by the Pentatonic Way. It's a course I built, and I'll just read what I wrote. This is one of the big reasons the Pentatonic Way exists, not to give you more information, but to give you structure, right? A simple, repeatable system that helps you connect your ear to the fretboard without overwhelm. There's a supportive community, built-in accountability, and a clear path so you're not bouncing between random lessons as on YouTube or just feel like you're practicing by yourself. You have a community that's doing the same thing. We show up every week. We congratulate each other, and you have accountability. If you don't do the thing, you don't do the thing, but now everybody knows. And they don't care, but maybe you care that they know. The goal isn't complexity, it's confidence. If that sounds like a better way to grow, you can learn more at Pentatonicway.com. No, Pentatonicway.com. I messed up the most important part, the name. Anyway, back to the episode, guys. So here are 5 practical ways to start hearing what you play. All right? Now, this first one, you might want to practice in the privacy of your own home, a practice studio. The first one is sing before you play, right? So if you're singing a short phrase over a backing track or strum some chords, and then you find it on the guitar. So that's kind of instantly creating this connection between your ear and the fretboard, right? So say you have like a G chord. Remember, I had a cold, so please forgive me, but that's the root to the root, down a fifth to the fifth. Say I go to D. All right, and that's like, the D. Okay, that's going to the flat, like the flat 7, and down to the 6th. But I think that what I'm thinking with the 6th, here's the D to flat 7. And then on the next 6, what would be the 6th and D? I think that's actually, I'm hearing the G chord resolving there, and that would be the 3rd. But that's the idea, just try to play. You don't have to switch chords, but so it's something to mess around with. I definitely could mess around with that more. What I like to do in our Monday night lessons is we'll do this thing, exercise called Simon Shreds. And I'll play something off camera, and they have to figure it out in a way. It's not really the same thing, I guess, because you're not internalizing it by singing it. But the things I sing aren't typically what I play. And they might not even be in key because I'm not the best singer. But if you're a great singer, this might be helpful to you. Or if you can't sing it ahead of time, play, sing what you play, And that will help. Probably do that first, and then, like I was saying, you're training your brain is what's possible. Maybe you'll start singing better stuff. I'm going to do that, and I'll check in at some point and tell you how it went. Cool. So that's number one. Number two is limit yourself to 3 notes. So try the root, the minor third, and the fifth, the arpeggios, right? So try to improvise with only those. So if you have a G, you know. Oh, I threw a couple in there, but a couple non-chord tones. But and then let me go G, T. You know, that's one way to do it. I personally find that very limiting. Some people swear by it, like, oh, just play the arpeggios, play the arpeggios. I think it sounds kind of boring. Don't tell them I said that. That's why I like the Pentatonics, because you can add a couple color notes. You can make things sound more rhythmically interesting, right? Because you have more notes to work with. You got 2 notes per string, you know, so G. So I'll rewrite this and say limit yourself to 3 to 5 notes. That's my suggestion. But knowing where the arpeggios are is huge. Like where the chord tones are, even if you're using pentatonics, because then you can target them, you know, and you know that if you're playing this in G, that's the 9 because the root's here. So you can kind of use that arpeggio, that triad, as your roadmap and as your architecture for whatever, or your framing for whatever you're attaching these non-chord tones to. You can have a reference point. So that's number 2. All right, practice. Number 3 is practice landing on chord changes. Now this is the best. This is the best. This is where your soloing really starts to sound professional. You start to sound like you know what you're doing. And it becomes really fun because you can just, if you know where you're going and if you're landing on the chord changes, the whole world opens up. You never feel like, oh, I just play the same stuff all over and over and over, right? Like I was saying, where you get stuck in those licks and those shapes, those patterns that that lead to going, I always sound the same or whatever, or like that was pretty good, but you know, it didn't really sound any different than anything else. I just come in and do my thing while everybody else is, everything, the chords are changed and everything. It's like an actor that comes into a movie and does their thing. Like they don't change. Like I think of, oh man, who plays Batman? Christian Bale or Brad Pitt. You know, like in a lot of movies, those guys change all the time. Gary Oldman, you know what I mean? Like in every movie, they're different, as opposed to like Christopher Walken or Jack Nicholson. Like they kind of change a little bit, but they're always the same. You got Christopher Walken doing his thing, and you got Jack Nicholson doing his thing through the whole movie, and you hire them for that, right? But maybe they get tired of themselves too. Maybe they don't. But if you ever get tired of your playing, this is why, because you're just doing the same thing over every chord progression, as opposed to like having, you know, the challenge and the joy of just playing around with this chord progression, right? You have these chords and they're going to shape the phrases you play. And if you never played over that chord change before, you're going to play something you've never played, which is the goal, right? You want to keep moving forward and explore and stuff like that with conscious mindset. So, or conscious intention. So I got a backing track here and I'll just demonstrate this. So what you want to do is find the notes that change and use that to reinforce it, right? So here's like a David Gilmore track, backing track. It's like B minor to G major, B minor, G major, and then it's like E minor, B minor to E minor. So it's the same shapes. You can use for the B minor, just use the first shape. I'm using Pentatonics at the 7th fret. And then, very simply, when it goes to the G or the E minor, you just change to the 4th shape there in the same fret, 7th fret. If you have a guitar with you, try it, and what you'll see is that only one note changes. That's for the G major, that's your G, and then for B minor, that from here to there. And what that's going to do is going to make the scale sound like it follows the chord. So simple, right? You don't have to have all these, all your notes, your 7-note scale, and you're like, all right, what note can I play now? What note can I play now? Just try this. Like I'm saying, simplify, and it's going to help you to react in the moment, right? So listen to this. Here's the track. E major. So see, I targeted that note. Target it again, so hit right when the B minor. I know I can do whatever I want, in that shape. E minor. Trying to keep. You get the idea. So could you hear that the chord scales are following the chord? And all I'm doing is changing from the first shape to the 4th shape right in that area. And that's the type of stuff we do at the Pentatonic way. But just know that that's possible. It's not very difficult for you to figure out on your own, right? B minor, where would I play that? Probably at the 7th fret, the 1st shape. Then you just have to figure out, all right, where's G major around there? I attach it to chords. I know if I play this chord, G, I know that's the 4th shape. Or if I play this E minor, I know that's the 4th shape. That's what we do in the chorus. We kind of combine these or attach these scales shapes, the 5 pentatonic shapes, to some chord shapes that you'd play, and then that makes it super easy, right? Like I was saying, like reduce the amount of options you have, or the amount you have to think, really is what it comes down to. So instead of thinking about what you're playing, and using all your mind, energy, whatever on that, you're thinking, what am I going to do with this shape? I know what shape I'm supposed to play. Let's have fun with this. Let's see what we can do with it. Well, where does that sound lead me to, or whatever? That's the idea. So practice landing on chord changers, and that's going to also train your ear to be like, oh, here comes the chord change. I know this is the sound that changes. Let's play a lick that leads up to that. Like I'd lead up to the change here with the B minor. You got, and there's the change note. I know it's coming. I want to hit it right on that downbeat, so I surround it. I play the note below it and the note above it, and then, and this is what you hear people do, right? You go, when I first started doing this, I'm like, oh, that sounds like something that someone knows what they're doing would do. So that's the idea. All right, repeat one idea 3 times. Now I tried to do it there, and this is the way forward to kind of play more, to what you hear. Yeah, what better way to play what's in your head than something you already heard. So if you hit something that you're like, oh, that's cool, say it's in D minor again, and you're like, okay, like, let's repeat that. And you already know what it sounds like. So do you do it in the same beat? Like if you were like, or do you surprise somebody, the audience, and do it like anticipate it, do it quicker? Start it, the third time around and go somewhere else. Like that's a different way to repeat, and you're kind of setting up the audience to hear, or the listener to anticipate what you do, and then you change it, right? Or, and this is so effective, you just keep doing it over and over. And I've told this story before, but it really struck deep with me, I guess. Is I went to see the Experience Hendrix tour at the Orpheum in Boston. I think it was the first one they did, and it had like, Steve Vai was there, Eric Johnson was there, Vernon Reid was there, like all these amazing players. It was ridiculous. It was so cool. And then Kenny Wade Shepherd came out, and everybody's playing their ass off, right? But Kenny Wade Shepherd came out, he played his ass off. But when the audience went the most insane throughout that whole night was when he just did something like that. Like, he just like... He might have had a hand thing, throw his hand up, a little showmanship every time he did it. Oh my gosh, everybody went nuts. They were going crazy. And we had Eric Johnson there. We had Steve Vai there, Vernon Reid. And these guys were going all over the neck crazy. But the crowd went nuts when he just did that over and over and over, because they know what's happening. They hear it comes, and there's so much. And then the band starts getting into it because they know what he's going to play. So they're really like, leaning into it. And the audience is going like, oh, this sounds familiar. How many times are you going to do it now? Now you're guessing it. And it's almost like the Family Guy thing, too. It's like, where they do something and it's funny, and then they just keep going, and then it becomes kind of like annoying. And then they keep going, and it becomes funny again. It's kind of like that. Like you just keep going and go, whoa, that's cool. And then you're going, all right, okay, all right. And then you're like, okay, all right, keep going, man. It's something like that. So, yeah, don't forget to repeat stuff. Sorry. And then last but not least, number 5 is maybe, slow down by 20%. Give your fingers time to react and find the notes. Don't just run scales like I was doing. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Slow down, take your time, be intentional, try to try to hear what you're going to do before you do it. I mean, that's what this whole episode is about. So if it was that easy, we would just be doing that already. But yeah, try to slow down, take a deep breath before your solo comes up. You're like, all right, chill out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fine. And you know what? You can always speed up after. It's harder, I think, to slow down. Like if you come in guns blazing, people, whoa, they go, whoa. And then then you slow down. I think that's kind of like a letdown. It's like being on the highway going really fast, thrown back into your seat. And then you have to let up a little bit. And as soon as you do, your back's not pressed against the seat as much. And you feel like, this is cool, but it's not like it was. So, that's my suggestion. You can always speed up, and that's probably, preferable, because then you're building excitement as the solo goes on to the big conclusion, right? So there's 5 reasons. Maybe you can't, you're guessing on the neck instead of playing what you hear, and 5 tips to help you get there and start playing what you hear in your head. So yeah, to wrap it up, if your solos have felt random, it's not because you're untalented. You're not. Everybody's talented. That's my opinion. Come at me. No, people have recently, and like, no, you can't teach talent. But it's because you've been trying to think your way through something that should be heard, right? So I want you to stop guessing, or you don't stop guessing by learning more. You stop guessing by listening more and anticipating more and training your hands and your ears to work together. Simplicity, fewer notes equals more awareness, more things easier to keep track of, and easier to make a clear direction ahead, right? So if this episode helped, make sure to follow the podcast and share it with a guitarist who you might feel stuck in the box as well. And yeah, I will talk to you next time. I hope you have a great week. Pick up your guitar. Let me know if any of these, rung true to you in the comments. Let me know. Or if you have any tips on how you go about applying what you hear in your head to your fretboard, all right? Because Lord knows I don't have all the answers, and I could use all the help I can get. So, all right, I'll talk to you later. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.